What's going on, Internet? What's going on?
Hey, Internet. Look at that.
Back.
We're on the super highway. We're on the World Wide Web super highway, the on-ramp to intellectual improvement. Here we go.
This is my fault, everybody. Sure. I used a 1990s internet metaphor, and I'm getting roasted for it live on the show. And that's okay. That happens from time to time on the show.
You definitely can deal with that, though. You know
that. You can deal with a little bit of roasting.
Just a little bit, yeah, just a little bit.
I used to settle the general public, so you're right.
Right.
I can definitely deal with a heckler too.
Oh, you're a criminal too. Deceitful liar.
Come on now.
Scum and villainy. Salespeople. no worse humans walking around than salespeople. Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No worse. Certainly none of these, Imperials would be worse or anything like that. I'm just glad to be back watching this show, honestly, after years and years of projects that didn't live up to it. And we're here.
It's been a couple years since Andor season 1 ended, and then there was this abyss of space trash that came floating by, and we looked at it and analyzed it, took parts of it,
and
sent the rest off.
You realize what you're saying is logged on the internet, right? Because
it's fine, because my heart is with this show, like regardless of whatever else happens, because it's great. It's really great.
I might need a spatula, bro. You might be the biggest flip-flop I think I've seen in Star Wars history. Because we have all this recorded, bro.
I've never swayed on my opinion of Andor.
Are you? I'm talking about everything else. You're calling it space trash and stuff. I'm like, bro, is this the same pen or is this the
except for Skeleton Crew and Neil?
Everything else you're now saying. You're saying everything else is trash. That's what we're getting, right? Okay. Internet, like I said, you guys have watched our previous episodes. We now have evidence that Ken is now bashing all these shows that we're getting 10 out of Ken's. When me and him are going back and forth on what was that bullshit show in the woods? I forget.
Oh, the Acolyte.
Oh yeah, Acolyte. Yeah, that's crazy. I forgot the name, but yeah, all these back and forth with me and Ken, and now all of a sudden he's come to the light side, and now DP, you're unmuted, by the way. But yeah, it's glad that SC Ken sees the light now. So before we even dive
there I am.
So
I was wondering what was up with you.
Right.
We don't get this deep.
Right. But before we dive any deeper into this show that Ken is deeming as of the greatest show of all time, we got to do some house cleaning. And before we do some house cleaning, let's let our guy DP let you guys know where to find us at.
Nerdcyclopedia.com, people. Your favorite website where you get all your favorite social media at Nerdcyclopedia. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also on TikTok. If you are listening to us on podcast, on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Odyssey, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, guess what? We are there. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that notification. So anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. Some feedback too. Nerdcyclopedia feedback at gmail.com. We love getting your feedback and giving it right back at you.
And that's still free, right?
Yes. Ken, thank you for mentioning that.
It's still free.
I'm not a salesperson, but if I were to tell you about the benefits of emailing us, one of the main benefits I would bring up to you is that it is completely gratis. It costs you absolutely nothing to do. So you should do it today.
You'll never get a bill from us for sending us feedback. Ever.
Ever. Those are those famous last words, ever.
Do it today.
I feel like this is where
so long as the super information highway exists,
The Super Information Highway. There we go with the.
Listen, it's not my. I'm not the one that said I still had a disc from like AOL in 1996.
I do.
All right.
I used to mail them.
Yeah, I know. I got some from somewhere.
There's landfills.
You can put a drink on them. Keep the coffee table clean.
Archaeologists will know they're in the trash from like 1998. Like, this is it. We're there. We're in the AOL there.
We've found their access to the superhighway. Look, it was on these round, shiny things that they put into their computers.
That's funny.
They just went wrong with panels. That's all. It's all good.
No, it is, but I'm sure you guys. Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure you guys know we're definitely all here, and it's not 1990s internet connections, but it is a show that predates the 90s. A very important show that we've all found out, and something that we've been a bit to discuss. I mean, we've literally gotten basically the end game runtime for a series, right? 3 different episodes. So yes, Andor season 2 arrived. If you guys are still under a rock, I'm not even saying spoiler warning, because at this point you should have seen it. I mean, to get it, everybody has lives and everything, but it's Friday night. So if you're watching us live, then you can go ahead and pause this and come back and watch it and break it down with us. But you need to watch.
We can pause ourselves if you want.
Yeah, we can watch it again. Looks like everybody's frozen.
That's the 1990s for you.
Exactly. Somebody's calling on the phone. Hold on. Yeah, you know what I mean? When everybody freezes, like it's.
Oh no, that's the worst.
Somebody's calling on the phone.
You're gonna be scared on that.
Let's kick it out. Like
sister would probably rate their grade lower just because of that one thing growing up. People calling it on the phone, the internet getting
exactly. It was down. My downloads. I was on Napster. And that shit would just. Your song would stop. You're like 80% done, then it stops, and then that's like restart. Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, and then you'd have to do it all over. And you know what? We loved it. That was great. That was a good time.
I don't want to get into a rhapsody. Maybe we should do an episode on the old internet someday for the kids.
How I pine for those days.
Yeah. But no, guys, as we were we're segueing into, I mean, what an explosive start to a show that I don't know, it's just I can definitely say since I've been on the show with you guys doing Carbonite Bound BS, like I have to say, like, I've never seen such like I don't even know, me and DP were kind of talking about it, like it's I don't want to say like segmented, but like a divided like fan base and a divided like opinion of people, right? Like on one instance, like for the most part, this is like a masterpiece of a show. On the other part, like I'm seeing like some, like I said, I don't know if it's clickbait, but like wild shit. This is not Star. This is not my Star Wars. Like like I can get it because it's not traditional Star Wars. This is what you call a masterpiece of storytelling and taking a medium and a galaxy and doing what you want, but staying within the rules. Like. And we'll get into the 3 episodes, but I just have to say, like, I don't think I've ever seen like something so polarizing in my life that I just don't. I'm open to other opinions, but and if somebody's in the chat watching this live, if you do have that polar opposite opinion of it not being Star Wars, whatever, please let us know because I just don't fucking see it. Like I'm gonna be dead honest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this story, this arc does what they wanted the first trilogy to do, the 1, 2, 3, like the backstory to like give us a foundation of where Star Wars kind of set, like how it got there. I think that first trilogy it had good little parts, but I don't think it really set up A New Hope like this is doing.
Right.
And the whole understanding the complexity of a rebellion. Like, what did it take? Because all we saw a rebellion that was pretty much right there with the Empire as far as an adversary. I mean, we saw a rebellion that had strategy. It had a military. I mean, it was good. It was organized. It had leaders. We knew who the leaders were. They were in place for a specific reason because they were skilled in various aspects of carrying on a war. We're seeing how that all happens, like how that started. We see where the money came from, because you got to have money, and then we see how the grunts were developed. The actual rebels, because Mon is not a rebel. Mon is a leader to be, and money. So how she got tied up in all this is still kind of a gray to me. Like, I don't really see where her motivation is, aside from the fact that she befriended Luthen and she's kind of entwined in his web of crazy. Because face it, Skarsgård is a crazy person. Like, he's a crazy actor. He takes these weird roles and becomes them. So everything I've seen him in is he's a crazy person, and Luthen is crazy. I mean, this guy is absolutely crazy the way he's playing these two sides. He's friends with the rebels. He's also in the pockets of these diplomats, and he's able to sew them together very nicely. And nobody's
navigating between both worlds.
Yeah, yes. He's able to go back and forth between the two. His outfits, he dresses, he has hair when he's talking to the diplomats, and he's bald when he's talking to the rebels. I mean, he's definitely like Bruce Wayne and Batman. If I want to like bring it into another nerd world, but he's like this superhero, and he's got an identity. And I mean, this show is fantastic, and I'd like T. Mitch, like you said, I'd love to hear an opinion of someone that really hates it, because that would be interesting.
I mean, I don't know personally.
I mean, yeah, I mean, people are the way platforms are. People are going to just speak their mind and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm not one of the ones that hate it. I love this. I love the first 3 episodes. As soon as I seen that, seen the premiere and just the scope of it, just the entrance and back into the world, seeing like Andor, sort of like using charisma to navigate like the one lady who was unsure of herself and everything, and she said she was having fun, doing what she was doing in the with the Empire and everything, but she realized like the cause and stuff, and so Andor pretty much got her swayed to go to the side. She was going to make her sacrifice. That's what he was telling her. You're about to come home to yourself. That was a very very good line. You're about to come home to yourself. So everything that you're feeling as far as that fun and all that thing, everything that you believed or didn't really believe in before, you're believing in now. You're making a sacrifice, for yourself, for everyone who believes in what we believe in and everything. The scope of that, we got a big, the big, should we call the ship? I'm sorry.
You mean the prototype TIE fighter?
Yeah, the prototype TIE fighter. Yeah. So he gets into the ship. He gets into the TIE fighter and finds, I believe he thought it was a certain model. So either it's a different model or more of an upgraded model from what he expected. And he had to learn as he was, escaping, with it out of the thing and everything. So that whole sequence just put us into like a tension, a suspense, and everything. Okay, right off the bat, we're in like, we're right into it. We're into like, the rebellion, and just going straight into it. And I love the way it's just started off with getting us back into that world.
I'm so impressed by this show, and I think like the rest of you guys, I have very high expectations when Disney puts a Star Wars series out, and maybe my expectations, like some quarterbacks and tonight's NFL draft have not been fulfilled before. Where I felt like I got passed up by all 32 teams twice.
It's actually halfway through three. It's actually halfway through three, but I get you.
It's another time. It's another chance for a certain team and a certain city to pick that quarterback I'm alluding to. But that being said,
wow,
this show has just impressed me, and not just because it's a Star Wars show, and not just because I like it like a Star Wars show, but because it is able to combine so many different literary elements and different. You don't want to say tropey elements, but different pieces of different types of fiction. And we talk about this as being a Rogue One or Rogue Zero, but I don't know if you guys remember the Legends novels, the old Wraith Squadron novels, where they would do infiltration and a bunch of like special forces stuff. And this felt like straight out of a Wraith Squadron Legends story for me. And seeing it on Disney Plus in real life is so crazy. They really didn't miss anything. The very first scene, they show you how much time has passed by showing you how much Andor has changed. He's the one telling her you have what you like to search inside yourself and find that little kernel of morality that's there, and that's you. That's your person. That's the type of thing characters were saying to him last year. I really liked how they portrayed the turf battle with the marooned pirates, so to speak. I like how it felt like Treasure Island. It felt like at the beginning felt like the opening to a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
This show itself feels like The Wire because there's counter investigations, counterintelligence. They don't explain who's doing what. We're supposed to know what the Gorman massacre is, right? Like when they start talking about Gorman, like we know that's something that we're gonna see. Everything about this has been excellent. Even something as like having Mon Mothma dancing around at a rave with Dancing Machine 69,000, playing all the rave stuff and playing the music. Even the way they chose to end the episode there by having, taken away by Cinta, like it's the end of Goodfellas, and Tommy's walking into that empty room.
Yeah,
I mean, that whole conversation between Luthien and Mon Mothma, where he's like, well, you know what that means, and she says, I haven't the foggiest idea, and he just looks at her and says, isn't that nice?
and that's what I was saying. He's able to manipulate both sides of this, what will inevitably become the rebellion. But right now, it's now this sort of there. He's building it. He's building the pieces. He's putting everything together. And isn't it interesting that we're seeing Andor grow because he's learning how to be that leader, because he was able to, as a prisoner, manipulate these two. Or they split, right? They had an argument and they're like children, and they just said, well, I'm going over here and you're going over there. We're taking my toys and we're going home. And he was able to manipulate them to get himself out. And that's there's a little bit of leadership there. He's telling them, you need to set up a perimeter. You know what they're doing there? They're getting ready to strike. You need to round up the wagons. And they're like, oh yeah, we were just going to do that. Like he's practicing. That's what this is. He's practicing for what's to come, because he has to mature a lot. I mean, he was really just let's say he was like a third level thug. He wasn't full blown General Cassian like we know yet.
right.
But now he's starting to get some of those skills, and it's interesting the way he can manipulate too, because isn't that what a rebellion is? You got to manipulate a lot to get to the goal, because you're going up against this thing that's huge. I mean, the Empire, and we also see, and I know you guys hate the Empire, but we're starting to see now why people hate the Empire, because they come in and harvest a planet until the core falls in and everybody dies. They come to your little house and try to take your wife from you. They're just these small little things that they do that people consider them assholes. And they're assholes on very small levels all across the galaxy. And that's how the rebellion succeeds. Because people are like,
Well, at first it didn't begin like that. You know, at first they thought the Empire was like saviors and stuff.
Right. Yeah. In the big picture, they might
bring up a very important point, Ken, and I think, T. Mitch, to your earlier point, there are people who have an interest in naysaying the story here because they seem to think, and I don't know why this is, because I'm not, I don't know anything about this, that there are parallels in how the Empire is treating our heroes here, Brasso and Bix and Will. The way they're treating them has parallels to the way certain governments treat certain populations of undocumented migratory agricultural workers, and that the heavy-handedness shown here is seen as a caricature of that real world activity. And I think that there are people who have a vested interest in preventing that from happening, right? And that's why they're naysaying this, because they do not like this narrative of this ham-fisted fascist empire reaching its big fat hand down onto this planet, messing with the local economy, and ousting these workers that are doing jobs that everybody involved knows needs to be done by somebody, and knows that these people have the skills to do it. And the only problem is some stupid bureaucratic BS that shouldn't even be a thing, because we know for a fact that it is the Empire's fault that they're in this predicament, right? We know that for a fact. Now we also know, and this is interesting, right? That if the Empire is looking for illegals, there's not going to be anything more illegal than passing the Andor's family, right? So it's hard. Like, as much as you want to be like, why are they hassling these people? Because they shouldn't be hassling these people. In fact, they are poking at what they're looking to poke at, right? This is what they're trying to find is these hidden networks of rebels. So you can see how this legitimate government prerogative, right? This legitimate government prerogative is causing this behavior that everybody involved can see exactly why it's bad to do these things, and can see things that I think many histories leave very much in between the lines. And that is the sexual violence that is inherent in the sort of oppression that is being shown here. And it's not something that is Star Wars or our world. It's every world forever. And
it's so much left out of its history. It's like, the fortunate part about what you're saying there, when you're writing books, when you're writing narratives and stuff like that, I guess to tell the history, to get explicit in that instance and to that level of detail is pretty much maybe you want to tell the history and stuff, that this stuff happens and everything, but to really go into like the human detail of what the human condition was in those certain pockets of history that we really see in a certain type of color, in a certain type of way. Now, it was written in a certain way where a lot of stuff that was told, everything wasn't told. All the sexual assaults, all the the violence and stuff, all the deviant behaviors and stuff that humans had to other humans back then. And for all Star Wars to sort of like broach that little bit, in a first time, setting in a Star Wars thing, that's pretty much just monumental in this type of history. So it's not something that you can deny and say, okay, well, something like that would never happen. Come on now, look at the way humans treat each other nowadays.
There's movies. I mean, there's scenes like this in movies that are historical in context, right? And look, science fiction, a big piece of what science fiction is, it allows you to interrogate the current day in a way that is not threatening to the people who are participating in the current day, because there is no empire. There is no galactic empire. There's no one to hang this on. There's no one who's doing these things. But it allows you to interrogate the situation. It allows you to ask yourself, does this seem like a plausible thing that has happened and would happen and can happen, right? And is perpetuating that, or risking perpetuating that, something that you personally want to be a part of, right? It invites you to make the moral decision yourself. And I don't think I mean, I don't think that this media equivocates on what the right moral thing to do is, right? It's kill that guy. Like, I don't, to me, there's no question that this was exactly what should have happened in this case.
Right.
This is exactly the right thing to happen. And I think that, you know, we talk about this being grown up Star Wars.
And they killed them. They killed them good too. Like, that was a slow, organizing,
monkey wrenching,
psychologically destructive way to kill a person. I mean, to beat them into a state of concussion, like multiple concussions, bleeding on the brain. I mean, that does a numerous. That's probably as much pain as they could have put him in that small amount of time. And just the idea that, what you were saying, Steel City, about this is like science fiction. If this had been based in like 1950s New York, it probably would be not as, I don't want to say interesting, but it wouldn't be as impactful. But because it's set in this sort of space science fiction, like futuristic world, we're not so threatened by it. And that's why George did this whole thing anyway. He didn't want to make it cowboys and Indians, because that would be threatening, right? Because it's too real. But in this world, we can discuss things like blatant murder. We can discuss things that are, you know, like you said, beating up on the migrant workforce on a planet, slavery, sexual predators. We can talk about these things,
sexual
and
predators,
no one's really like threatened by it, but we understand it because it happens. But it's science fiction, so it's kind of fluffy.
But what is the Empire but one big implication, right? What is the Death Star but one big giant or else? You know what I mean? And when all you have is or else, you can't have consent. When all that's just the rule. That's just how logically how it works. So that what the Empire is doing is it is removing your choice of participation, right?
Right. And removing your need to consent to whatever the Empire is trying to do. That's not the point.
Exactly. So I think these themes and these topics aren't just important to be discussed. They make the medium seem real. They actually put a texture there that feels like it's grounded in reality, and it feels more real than the stories that we hear about history. It's true.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes down to the difference between setting us here with the Empire and the Rebellion and setting a story in, say, I don't know, Eastern Europe in 1945 and the Red Army sweeping back against, you know, the German army and all of that, right? Like, because that puts a name on the actor that is going to attach to somebody, right? It attaches
to personal. It's too personal because it's like within our timeline. It's like within all of our histories. Everybody has some family lineage that's directly attached to that.
I mean, we live in a world where Thomas Jefferson has a monument in Washington, D.C. So hypocrisy and that sort of thing is not something that our society is just coming to for the first time. We're very much a product of that and the whitewashing of those things. And ignoring them and being polite about those things, which perpetuates that sort of sexual violence over time. And the evidence is very real, as we all know, right?
And he's on our money too.
He's on our money.
Yeah.
You know,
so's Abraham Lincoln. He was a vampire killer.
I don't want to get all the way into again, but to me, when a show is good like this, it makes me think about everything. And it makes me
that's exactly the goal.
The real world. It doesn't make me think like, man, this is a really expensive walk in the woods. It doesn't make me think like, hey, you know, you probably could have put some more stuff in this, or I don't know why you're sure. I don't know why you did it out of order. A show like this, a lot when it's good and it's tight, it lets you focus on the symbolism. It lets you focus on the actual plot, and it lets you invest emotionally in these characters. I cannot believe I care this much about Mon Mothma's high school boyfriend. I can't believe I care this much about this guy.
And their wedding day with the hike, and it was raining.
Yeah.
I mean, so like you just said, I care. I actually care about these characters and what happened to them in their youth that's making them who they are now. There isn't anything out of order so far in this series. Like, I think they did this. Each episode builds on the one previous because it kept going back and kind of, refreshing your memory about things. And then they wove this very strategic storyline that went across the entire, what was it? Almost 2 hours. 2 hours and something.
It was like 2 hours and, very 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It was all held solid. It was like when you're building with you're building with Legos, and you put a Lego brick and then another one, and you do it right. You get this thing. It's so rock solid that you can't break it. You can't take it apart. Like, they did it right. They really put these together right. And if the next 3 are even 70% what these first 3 were,
well, it's kind of interesting too. It's interesting how Mon Mothma's journey is from, like, the first season to where she's going to this season, to where she's going to end up in an Andor. So, it sort of parallels what we've seen with what Gilroy and everything wanted to show us in the beginning with Andor and the Imperial soldier that he was trying to sway to make sure that she was okay with, losing all the stuff that she holds dear. This is the same thing that's about to happen to Mama and her daughter. Crazy stuff is about to happen, and it's about to happen very quickly, once the stuff just goes down. And they don't even know about the Death Star. They
don't. I think they have an idea that there's something brewing. I mean,
they have an idea something's brewing, but they can't have any. They can't possibly have any idea it will be of that magnitude to where they're creating a planet destroying thing to destroy planets. Think about what's about to happen with Gorman. So that meeting that they had with the whole band of leaders, whatever, that was basically like Steve Bannon and Steve Mitchell, up in a meeting about to use their persuasion skills to let them know, okay, this is how we could use propaganda to take over Gorman and all that stuff. And then he went back to Deidre and was like, what do you think about all this and stuff? Deidre was like, propaganda, that you can only get so far, but we got to get this stuff done quick. So you got to do something really, really hard, really quick in order to get what you want out of these people and stuff. So think about just that meeting and what's about to happen to those poor people in Gorman who are just living their lives, but they hear something that the Empire wants, that, the Empire is just going to have to move them off the rock somehow, and they almost can't really wait to, get them off that rock and stuff, and sacrifice all those people for what, for what that the core thing that they're saying that they need in order to power the Death Star.
Do you guys know what the Wannsee Conference was? The Wannsee Conference? No. So in 1942 in Poland, all the Nazis that were in charge of the Holocaust got together and they had a conversation about what to do with all the Jewish people that they had in the ghettos in the population centers across Eastern Europe. And they decided that what they were going to do is evacuate them. They were going to evacuate all the Jewish people from all of the ghettos and all of the Jewish populations from Europe. And the question was posed, well, where are we evacuating them to? And the answer was, evacuation was a euphemism for murder, right? Evacuation was a euphemism for murder. And it's interesting to see that conference that is historically documented and was a movie. I think I saw a movie with it with Kenneth Branagh and Stanley Tucci that was actually pretty good. It's historically documented in this parallel where they are getting together to plan a genocide like it's a freaking sales play Like, all right, you guys are going to be in charge of this, and you guys are going to be in charge of this, and we've got you guys doing the marketing. And okay, what's the main pitch we're going to be doing? And those guys get up and they're like, spiders are terrible. And everyone's like, all right, we can do. I think I can sell spiders are terrible and scary and secretive. And then, but look, what they want to do to this planet is essentially what the Death Star did to Alderaan, but they want to do it with pickaxes, right? They want to do it with grinders. They want to grind their way into the core, and they're going to blow this planet up. Where are they going to send the Gormans? Obviously, they're not sending them nowhere. And let alone the however many million humans.
They're not sending them nowhere. I like that.
Where there are 40 billion spider lives that are about to be lost on Gorman, and that's what I'm concerned with, is the spider lives.
If they show, I don't know what they're about to show these next few episodes, but if they take the time to assemble Gorman and show this whole thing, this is about to be a sad show. I mean, this is about to be some sad shit that we're about to witness as far as everything on Gorman.
We've already seen entire planets get destroyed. We've seen a holy city get destroyed.
Well, I'm not talking about so much as we seen like stuff like that. But if we start getting connected to characters and stuff that they do, for these next few episodes and everything, and then see the culmination of what happens, then it's some sad stuff. You could say, okay, well, they used the Death Star in the sequel trilogy and everything, and okay, that's fine. But at the time, were you thinking, oh, maybe that's a cool thing, the Death Star? People were naming themselves after this cool thing that first came out and everything, the Death Star, because it just sounded so cool. Now we're at we're really all adults now. This thing called the Death Star is no joke. It's an atomic weapon.
Yeah. And what if you were the Death Star? I'd kind of resent the name. Like, it immediately is like a negative thing. Like, I'm the Death Star. Oh, okay. I don't need to be a Death Star.
Does Star Killer Base sound better? Does that make it sound better for you?
Star Killer Base better. That sounds like a little calmer version of the Death Star. It's like the Death Star.
A really great.
I'd much rather be Star Killer Base.
There's a really great Legends short story where IG-88 puts his consciousness inside the Death Star computer, and he's getting all hyped up about all the stuff he's going to do with the Death Star super laser and how powerful he's going to be, and then Luke Skywalker blows him up. Very cool.
Which is it's poetic. It's poetic justice.
The Death Star is I think DP's right. Obviously, I think it's a metaphor for nuclear weapons and the sort of Damocles, like what it's like once you open up the planet killing Pandora's box, you can't close that. That's true. It's proven.
You can't, and I mean, and I'd love to. I was just thinking about this. I would love for us to continue this after Andor's done and after we watch Rogue One. I think we should go into like those the first three: A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, and also Empire Strikes Back, and look at and review those movies through the eyes of Andor. Through the eyes of what we've seen with this, and see if we can see the perspective, or just view those movies through the eyes of this TV show, and sort of like connect certain things, and see how it I would love to do that.
I want to see if there's like little hints that are.
I think so, yeah. I think we'll see it, but to be honest, so now we're what? Season 1 was how many? 12 episodes? 2 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. 12.
So we're now 15 episodes in of what Tony Gilroy can do with Star Wars. Like, this begs to differ, bro. And this may be not discussion for today, but like, I think there might be somebody better than actual Dave Filoni with Star Wars. Like, I'm starting to see something, because listen, these are just stories that don't involve Jedi and main characters, but what Gilroy has done with main characters and things like that. Imagine if they were to say, like, fuck all these like Rick McCallum movies and Favreau. Like, bro, give this guy. I mean, I'm all right now. I'm on board with just can you do 10, 11, 12, or whatever you want to do? Like, I want to see that. But I mean, the bigger thing now with him doing this Rogue One in this back catalog, I'm going to be controversial and say I would love to see him reboot 4, 5, and 6 based on his storytelling
Here you
alone.
go.
No, I'm serious. If he can
Ooh, I don't know about
redo, like,
that.
Yeah, he's a
I just
great,
think I think he
he's
can
a great
go. I
storyteller.
think based on how he's knitting this, and we have to keep in mind George's baby is always going to be George's baby, but like, bro, if he can really intertwine more of this story from Rogue One, even Episode 4, like we can really get deep into like because that the stakes at that point, right? Because I think that's really like the meat of the story is like that. Like we're talking about Rogue One in the Episode 4. I would just love to see him maybe like like reboot that and do it again. I would love to
I
see
would give him a sandbox in between A New Hope and Empire. I'd
or
like to
maybe
see the fill in there.
yeah.
I don't know about rewriting A New Hope. Like I don't think
You're
anybody
right. I think the
messed with
rewrite
that
would be
original
tough.
trilogy.
I think you're right. That kind of like you're saying, maybe like that 4.3.5 ish, something a little closer to that, maybe
Yeah, like
that would,
because this is great. I mean, the way
yeah.
he is building this up and it matches. It's like it's gonna click to. Well, it even says the end of season 2 is the beginning of Rogue One. Like that's that's like Rogue One's like season 3 of Andor. Right. This particular vehicle is doing such a good job of driving us into the original trilogy. I mean, if he wants to go in and do like a vignette of whatever happened after A New Hope, like after the celebration was over and everyone got their medal, except for Chewbacca. And everyone got their medal and everyone's like partying and okay, now what? Okay, the Empire's still there. We know that. So where do we go from here? Like, where does the rebellion go to get?
Well, isn't that what essentially the Clone Wars was? Like,
the Clone Wars was all before.
Well, it was all before. Yeah. Okay.
It was like that's like kind of 1.5 between 1.5 and 2.5. It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Period.
So what content have we gotten that that sort of bridges that? Okay, what happened after Return of the Jedi?
There's books. There's books.
I mean, so Return of the Jedi would be like 7.5. There's the Legends of Luke Skywalker is really like if you read that book, it's a really good read. It's kind of like well, it's not really 7.5, I guess I would say. It's basically Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi. He's just like ultra powerful Jedi Master. That's the story you hear about him pulling a Star Destroyer with the Force from the sky, and he like crashes on the planet. Like this is like Super Saiyan Luke Skywalker. He's walking around doing all these side quests, basically eliminating remnants and finding out of the Empire that we find out is now in a unknown region. Growing stronger. But before we even dive into that, I don't know if you guys recently read, but they did an exposition on the whole meme we talk about Palpatine's return. There actually is an exposition on how that actually happened.
Did he return?
So no, they actually. I bought the book, but I never read it, so I'm going to read it. It's Ray Carson's the physical description of Episode 9, but they go in the book and describe how he actually returned, and they talk about like that whole thing. Essentially, we were right. They retconned all these clonings we're seeing with Moff Gideon and stuff, and he essentially did an essence transfer. So he already had bodies ready for him. So when he had fell through the pit and he died, he force essence transferred his body into one of his clones. But the problem was that he was so powerful in the Force that these clone bodies couldn't basically, they were breaking down too fast. So that was like their tie-up point in the graphic novel to Episode 9.
Isn't that the way it always is? You get your cloning process down and you're trying to go from body to body and you're just too much for it and it breaks down, falls apart. It happens all the time.
I'm sick and tired of these subpar clones. I'm sick of
right.
I played one last week and I came out all messed up. I don't like it.
The arms are coming off and your eyes are melting out of your skull. It's like, come on, can't we like do something?
Here's what I want. I want them to do like Ken said, do me a series that's set after episode 4 that explains a few things. One of the threads, one of them should be showing Luke Skywalker integrating into Rogue Squadron. You should have Special Forces Commandos doing their thing, and then you know what? I want to see the rest of Mon Mothma's story now. I never thought I'd be like, you know what? I don't need to see Han and Chewie. Those guys, I get what happens to them. Show me Mon Mothma, please, and I'll be happy. And I think it's Genevieve O'Reilly. Is that her name? This performance is.
Her phenomenal. Her performance is phenomenal. I want to see what happened with her daughter. I want to see what happens with her, the husband. I want to see what happens. Well, what happens when that leads to end up being like a rebel leader?
And I at first I
didn't see that now.
Yeah,
I didn't. I thought they were building I thought the story was going along that we were going to like hate Perrin, but after his speech and the way he is sort of emotionally involved in the family side of things, not so much the money. Okay, he gambles, he's irresponsible, blah, blah, blah. But he's still got, unlike the dad in Skeleton Crew, who I think we all agree was kind of like, shut off from Will, right? I mean, he was kind of like too much into his job. I think Perrin has an investment in the family. Mon is separate. She's more interested in keeping her money going into the rebellion.
Yeah, but I don't think that, Ken. I think, you bring up a really key point. I think that the story of Mon Mothma is the ultimate sacrifice that a mother has to make. Like, because this point, and she says this, right? She has to make this, and it's as Hitch says, these stories, these historical stories repeat themselves. We've seen this cultures outside of the West. When you see this, when a lot of arranged marriage, Eastern Asian families, things like that, like the mother has to let go of the daughter. So at this point in the wedding, she says, like, look, I'm gonna have this talk with you that I didn't have. That my mother, I had never had somebody have with me, right? So she's basically breaking it down to her, like, look, you can make a choice. I didn't. You can make a choice right now. However, the problem is the talk is too late, right? These are the discussions. And Mon Mothma is at the point
she sold her family out, like.
No, because at this point, this is the ultimate sacrifice, right, for her family. She says it, right? The goal of this rebellion is, and Cassian says this throughout the story and Rogue One, right? And they know this, bro. The biggest sacrifice is not for myself; it's for future generations. Mon Mothma's already bought in, right? She knows that she can be struck down, she can die. That's why I think that this whole wedding scene is like her letting go. Like this is her final, because she's lost her daughter now, right? It's no longer a daughter. Her daughter's now a grown woman. She's now going to live her life. So I think Mon Mothma, that was like that whole exposition there that like this is the passing.
Yeah, she just kept drinking and she kept drinking and getting drunk.
She knew it. Like that's when
so she had to drink the decision out of her because she knew there was a moment she didn't have to do this. She didn't have to go in league with this criminal, this gangster, to launder her money. There were other possibilities, and I think Lutheran had some other alternative possibilities in mind. But she took this route because it seemed easy, and it also benefited her because they were coming after her. She knew the Empire was the ISB was on her tail.
Well, because of the money, but like still, like you said, though, this had to happen. Her daughter was going to have to make a decision. Based on their culture or their creed, she was going to have to make a decision.
There's that too.
So she had to. This was going to come, but ultimately, it's just it's tough. But we talked about this kind of when we saw it was kind of like in the Leia story a little bit, kind of how these families are in this time period and how the daughters grow up a lot faster. And we see it now. I think still in kind of like the Latin American culture, right? You see them at like a very young age, kind of like parenting older brothers and stuff, and growing up. And it's similar in the Star Wars story. Like her daughter, at kind of like a young teenage, is now taking her journey into to adulthood, right? And her father obviously is on board because he's more of the traditionalist, but Mon Mothma has to play both sides. She's trying to be the wife, but also she understands that there are bigger stakes at hand that affect all overall. And that's just the mother, right? She's not only protecting herself and her daughter, but she's looking at the instincts as far as this tyranny that's about to come down that ultimately nobody at this party knows about, or maybe a few people do. So I just think the story of Mon Mothma, you're right. I mean, maybe if they can do it, maybe a limited series or something, but I kind of do want to delve more because this is more like I think that people need this story. You know what I mean? We like it, but I think like the world kind of needs to see this story of maybe sacrifice, like her sacrifice, right? And what she's really giving up.
We're in the midst of seeing it.
But I think that, you guys are a couple, I don't know if canon, but I know you guys are girl dads. I just think that this is a powerful story that needs told at this point in juncture of the world. I think that this story needs to be told.
It's interesting to me that Lyda is so traditional, and she grew up because she was born like after the Empire was founded. So she doesn't even she doesn't remember the Republic. She doesn't have any idea what is different about the Empire. So she's like a boiled frog. Right. Like she doesn't know the temperature is going up because she has no perspective of what the galaxy was like without having a space warlock that knows the future, that knows what you're going to do, trying to run everything.
Right. Well, yeah. So I mean, so the biggest parental mistake that she probably did was try to get her daughter to try to understand her perspective without, it just really goes to show how disconnected she was with her daughter in that moment where she got really scared and told her daughter, you can get out of this, and her daughter's just like, what are you talking about? Like Hitch said, her daughter has no perspective of the experience that her mom went, has gone through, has seen, as everything. But that's a classic parental thing. We try to teach our kids, certain things, but they only have a perspective for only a certain time period. And when we let go of them and they go to school and talk to their friends and go out into the world and see certain things, nowadays, they have like, social media and all that stuff, YouTube or whatever. They're seeing a perspective of a world that we don't really have. You know what I'm saying? We can see, but okay, we can see the world in a different way. They see the world in a whole totally different way.
And ultimately they have to make the decision. I mean, you don't want to,
exactly.
As a parent, you can show them, hey, there's different choices. These are the choices I would recommend, and here's why. And if you go this way, this is what's going to happen. But ultimately, unless you're going to turn them into a little slave and keep them in the house for the rest of your life, I mean, you have to let them.
Well, Ken. Okay, so that sort of parallel dovetails into what we've seen with Deidre. So Correct. We find out that she was her parents were war criminals or whatever.
Right.
Or
very
strict.
Well,
no. Okay, so hold on. So Deidre believes her parents were criminals, or were told that her parents were criminals, and she was raised kinder block or something like that. Whatever the imperial, whatever that she was raised a certain type of way, So it sort of parallels or dovetails in a way from what we're seeing with Mon Mothma and her daughter, and the ways that these children get raised.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. I love that speech so much. And, Mothma's talking to herself. She's saying, she's trying to tell herself that Tay, like, she can take it back. Like, Tay can still be fine. Things can still go back the way they were. And her daughter just looks at her and is like, you simpering fool. Like, I wish you were drunk. And so what does she do?
She goes get drunk.
She gets hammered. She gets hammered and just dances out her feelings. And normally I don't like scenes like that, but that whole that whole scene from the time that rave bot floats in until that cold drop to black, fade to black. I that whole scene is excellent. It's just excellent, and it's better than it has any right to be. You're right. We should think Perrin's an idiot, but he's plainly there's more to him than meets the eyes. He's not concerned with, he's more concerned with money than he is with rights, but he's not a moron. He's certainly somewhat formidable. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see if there's some sort of line that Mothma's family, like if they encounter a red line ever, or if at the end of the day they're like, when she eventually does flee to the rebellion, which we know she does eventually, do they go with her, or are they just like, are they going to shun her? Are they going to say like, hey, you're not our family anymore? And what will the Emperor let them do? Like the Emperor, do you think the Emperor will play nice with them once he finds out
that they're related? No.
Mon Mothma was not just the leader of a faction against the Emperor, which we know he would kill her for that. She's the leader of a rebellion. I remember a faction would just be people that vote against him in the Senate. That's enough right there. That's enough for him. You're running a rebellion, and you have
a very well armed one, and with a lot of money and a lot of investments, because there's got to be something. There's got to be a money machine that's being built here too. Like something is going on where basically the rebellion has unlimited funds, much like the Empire does, except the Empire goes around and like steals it. The rebellion has this way to just keep the money going, but in a very legitimate fashion. After whatever this transaction is that she's working with what's his name? What's Scalar's dad's name? I forget.
Skuldrin.
I forget what his name is, but yeah, I mean, she makes this deal. They make this deal with this family because this guy can launder the money underneath the Empire's nose. So that's why this is happening, I guess.
Well, he's a good partner also because he has to avoid the Empire's scrutiny regularly. Mm-hmm. So, like, he doesn't have to change his behavior in order to act unscrupulous. Like for Mothma,
he's already been doing it too. He's been doing it. He says, "I know how to do this."
Black market system that the Emperor controls, but it's all tied up in this black market system. So moving it around in the black market system doesn't require him to sell an asset and have an income. Where right now in the United States, like if you said, "Okay, I want to finance a rebellion against the United States government," and you sold your house, what would happen is the IRS would go, "Hey, man, you made a significant amount of money selling your house. You got to pay us those taxes." And then they would come over to your house and ask you nicely. And that would be it. If you didn't pay after that, they'd give up. That's what I've heard about the IRS. They'll quit right away if you tell them no. Just kidding.
Oh,
they take it all.
Is that what you heard?
Yeah, that's what I heard. They take it all forever. And that's just regular tax assessments, guys. Like what these guys are doing on like Space Kansas, where all the wheat is, the wheat plant, like a shock top or whatever we want to call it over there. What they're doing is just regular accounting. How much grain do we have? How many silos are there? How many ships do we have to move them around? And it's that oppressive. It has a rape right in the middle of it. And it's just counting how much stuff there is. That's the only thing they're doing. That is, anytime the Empire moves at all, it squashes people left. It squashes people right. It's just a ham-fisted fascist government, and everything it does destroys the people that try to.
I think this series is probably the closest we're going to get to what The Wire, The Wire and what The Wire was trying to convey in the city of Baltimore, which in hence, like, okay, told the story of how American societies and, stuff is. But Andor sort of just gives you all that detail and complexity that wasn't really in like a lot of the other previous content and everything that we're probably never going to really get, and it gives you reasons why, so that's sort of like a reason, teammate, why Guild War probably won't be doing a lot more or Star Wars content, because the other stuff that carries in this world is probably not that very interesting to him. It gets more into like after Death Star happens, after what happens with that, it gets more after they deliver the plans of the Death Star and stuff, it gets more into fantasy, versus everything that happens before that. It's more like more
reality,
more
like
tangible.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do these. We talk about this. The underworld of like Coruscant, like this would be like the perfect guy to tell these like street level Star Wars stories about like the oppression of like what Coruscant was like without the rich elites. Like how Coruscant really was. I think Ahsoka they delved into that a little bit in the bit of Ahsoka, like the underbelly of really what Coruscant really was and things like that. So I definitely think there's a lane for him if he doesn't want to go in the fantasy route. But I mean, just these stories alone, I would hate to see like this be it for Gilroy with Star Wars. You know what I mean? And then seeing him in Celebrations, he seemed like this is something he might consider sticking around, like you're saying, given the right story.
Yeah, I still think the Philip Filoni is probably like the best. Like he just knows Star Wars, and I think Gilroy just noticed a faction of the story that could have been told, and an explanation of why things could happen the way how fascism happens. It's a great way. It's really all due to George Lucas. Obviously, he introduced elements and concepts lightly. And these writers and stuff and took the ideas and expanded on them and all that stuff. He introduced like the whole politics thing back in like the Phantom Menace stuff and everything. And everybody just pretty much ran with that. Okay, so this is the galaxy is. It's an empire built on fascism and everything, and this is why these characters act the way they do. This is why we have all these disparate planets and stuff. This is the reason why we got all that great content that Filoni wrote, or helped write in Clone War. I mean, in the Clone War series and everything. It's a very the Bad Batch. Oh my goodness. Bad Batch is some excellent shit. If you just go to animated stuff and everything, but this stuff here is far and beyond some of the best writing I've seen on TV. Period. Besides The Wire.
That's it. And this begs to differ. With this being a Star, and the crazy part, and we talked about this, as the intro. Like, say this isn't Star Wars is fine. Bro, this is just a good show. Like, you don't have to be a Star Wars fan. Like, you can watch a show and just see it's a good show, right? I mean, and it's great. I feel like they kind of we're on a streak now with the media, right? We got, DC, the Penguin, Marvel comes swinging back with their Daredevil, their street story, and now obviously Disney hits again with this street level story of Star Wars. Like, if this is any inclination, I talked about this before, of what writing is getting back to in the media world and in entertainment and all of the nerds and things we like to do, I'm here all for it. I mean, this is what a start to 2025.
It's crazy. It's phenomenal. I love the fact that instead of giving us like week to week, which would have been like a really great way to parse the whole meal out, they're giving us a smorgasbord in like four courses for the 4 weeks. So it's really good stuff, guys. I mean, I cannot wait till next week to see where the next year and BBY is going to take us.
It's innovative. Next week could be completely different tonally. It has the permission to go in any direction at once. It can be hilarious. It could be hilarious. It could be a bunch of slapstick comedy, and it wouldn't matter because the way they've set it up and the way they're putting it together is so good that they can go in any direction and they'll all work out.
I mean, they could have one episode is just Dedra, Cyril, and them going shopping at the mall.
It can have wacky like Dick Van Dyke style music in it. The whole thing. It can be black and white.
That would be awesome.
Thing, and Cyril's mother keeps calling him every 20 minutes and asking what they're doing, and I really like that girl. You really should shape yourself up and be a man for her. Blah blah blah.
Deirdre's just
Hey,
like, I don't have to
Deidre really put her in place, didn't she?
She struck her all the way down. That was crazy. Like,
but won her respect because by the end of that scene, the mom was like, "Yeah, okay, you
she already
can be with my kid. You can be with
River
my."
already told her, like, she read the file. She was like, if you say something, like, we can bring up the fact that your cousin is, like, I don't know, like a rapist or something. She was like, yeah. I was like, wow. So, yeah. So, mom's kind of in a rock and a hard place now. But, no, guys. I mean, this was a great start to Andor, and I hope everybody watching and listening to it thought about it as well. I mean, this is a phenomenal start. A great first 3 episodes. Can't wait to break the next 3 down next Friday as well with you guys. So, yeah, I'm very excited to get going. And if you haven't watched it, we'll give you some time to watch it now, as well as Rogue One. And until next week, guys, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Feedback.